Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Jaspreet Kaur and today we will study the module Introduction to Political Anthropology from the paper Social and Cultural Anthropology. Let us go through the learning objectives of this module. The first is to familiarize with the concept of power, leadership and politics. Second is to understand the concept of political anthropology. And lastly, to understand the link between politics and religion. In several occasions, it has been observed that colonial powers or resilient societies have levied political rule on the native people where previously no such system prevailed. The initiation of elementary form of political system had varying impact on particular societies. Now, such differences probably originated as a result of functional relatedness to the cultures and social system of the colliding societies. The subject of political anthropology broadly includes the tribal panchayat or the modern elected body, the government's organization, tribal law and justice, etc. briefly are the subject of political anthropology. Political anthropologists in day-to-day discussions usually term orientations or approaches by which they study and explore political phenomenon. The term politics refer to the practices of agents who work within the political structures and systems or they are related to them in any manner. In this regard, anthropologist seeks as to how political agents work. Leaders use their skills, power, shrewdness, wisdom, and various other strategies to pursue goals and meet their ends. Political agents and leaders include big men, the shamans, Sicilian bandits, chiefs, pathans, saints, etc., which forms the sources and means of political process. The political agents, like leaders, often engage in strategies and plans to gain power in order to increase their authority, enhance their legitimacy, defeat a competitor, retain their right to govern, and bend others according to their own will. In terms of politics, these varied goals are usually identified as public and are prosecuted in the service of constituencies and the public welfare. Development of political anthropology. The 19th century evolutionist. Darwin's influence led to the development of cultural anthropology in the second half of the 19th century, just as it led for the biology. The evolutionary theory emerging from this period was a primeval as the societies it sought to make sense of, which meant the evolutionary schemas were rigorous and simplistic. There were debates regarding whether the primitive societies were matriarchal or patriarchal. Customs were being torn out by their cultural context, which used to be compared by the armchair anthropologists. They never came across the savages that were their subjects. Before this period, the tradition that traced back to the era of Plato through most philosophers like Aristotle, Hobbes, and Rousseau was that the lower stages were characterized by anarchy and the politics and government were basically the product of civilization. One of the earliest challenge against this view came forth from Sir Henry Maine, who in his work Ancient Law stated that the ancient society was organized along the lines of kinship ties, was patriarchal in orientation, and was ordered by sacred proscriptions. The direction of evolution was that of secularization and organization was based on territory, that is, local contiguity, and not on kinship. In ancient society, Louis Henry Morgan developed the concept of primary socio-political structure. On the basis of mode of subsistence, Henry Morgan based his evolutionary sequence. He termed the stages as savagery, barbarism, and civilization, that is, the initial stage of hunting, gathering, horticulture, and developed agriculture. Social organization mainly started with the promiscuity that developed into kin-based units, which were oriented along the sexual lines, that is, intermarriage between male siblings and female siblings. The socio-political structure at this level is that of egalitarian and has its basis on the interpersonal relations. The complete specialization in terms of political sphere is not visible unless the complete domestication of plants and animals create adequate surplus, which leads to the urbanization and private property. Thus, true governance is based upon territory and property. The reactions. The two fundamental changes, that is, the rejection of evolutionary theory and methodology, and a growing gap between anthropologies of United States and of England and France, majorly characterized the early 20th century anthropologist. This shift was basically based upon the work of Emile Durkheim, which led to the increased cognitive structuralism, which dominated with the work of Claude Lévi-Strauss. Durkheim had little impact on cultural anthropology, whereas historian particularism of Franz Boas dominated in the United States. Robert Lowy came up with his discussion to deal with the political aspect through his work The Origin of the State. He realized and brought to recognition the political importance of associations in connecting diverse and separate groups. He observed these as being the basis of the state. He thus altered this view, showing how associations can come across as separatistic as kin relation. In order to acquire higher level of integration, a superordinate authority is required by the associations. The British functionalist. The two categories of functionalism strive for dominance, which are Bronislaw Malinowski's psychobiological functionalism and A. R. Radcliffe Brown's structural functionalism. The founder of modern fieldwork tradition is often considered to be Bronislaw Malinowski for his extensive level of research in Trobriand Islands, which depicted cultural institutions are derived from specific psychological and biological needs. Though he gave little contribution to the political anthropology, but his work on religion, law and economics indirectly cleared the route for the kind of specialization that would later become quite prevalent. Thus, Malinowski's participant observation method became an exemplary for an entire generation of British field workers whose vivid analysis of African societies would result into the establishment of political anthropology as a well-founded subdiscipline. According to Radcliffe Brown, a society is said to be an equilibrium system where separate part functions to perform the maintenance of the whole. Thus, societies were sought to be illustrated from high above so as to be mapped in order to show how their various elements intermeshed. This approach mainly focused on those values, principles, norms and ideal structures that forms the skeleton within which activity takes place. The year 1940 led to the development of modern political anthropology, brought about in a work titled African Political Systems, which was edited by Mayer Forts and E. E. Evans Pritchard. The work illustrated the two kinds of African political systems prevailing, namely, those with centralized authority and judicial institutions, those without such authority and institutions. The main point of discrimination lies with the role of kinship. In case of stateless societies, decision-making and integration is based at the lowest level on band groups or bilateral family, while at the higher level on the corporate lineal descent group. Whereas the state societies are those in which an administrative organization binds or overrides such groups as a permanent form of political structure. Initially, the typology faced criticism for being too simple, but how lineages coordinated and functioned politically in several specific societies left a lasting contribution. The neo-evolutionist. For approximately 2 decades, England prevailed in political sphere of anthropology, whereas in United States a different kind of political anthropology was seen emerging. Leslie White developed complex array of evolutionism through intensification of agriculture to private ownership, stratification of class, specialization and political centralization. A lot of this was brought in light at much higher level of generality, which led White to the charge of invigorate the 19th century unilinear theory and Julian Stewart's usage of the term multilinear evolution for his theory, only added to validate an unneeded dichotomy. Political anthropologists from American genre based their context of change that was basically ecological and materialist. Leslie White conceptualized evolution on the basis of energy efficiency and technology as a prime mover. Julian Stewart's concept of cultural ecology was based upon the concept of cultural core, the subsistence and economic arrangements which determines social structure and ideology. Two major evolutionary works include Ellman Service's Primitive Social Organization and Morton Freed's The Evolution of Political Society, which were more descriptive rather than casual in their approach. Now let us study the evolution of political societies. The pre-industrial political systems they evolved into uncentralized egalitarian and centralized systems. The uncentralized egalitarian system further evolved into bands and tribes, whereas the centralized system evolved into chiefdom rank and states which were stratified. Now, this overall model is a fourfold scheme of development of human societies, and it was based on the socio-economic and political regional parameters, which was suggested by an American cultural neo-evolutionist, Ellman Service, and this model was given in the year 1962. So the first in the category of pre-industrial political system are the uncentralized systems. Here, power is non-state system is basically fragmented and of temporary nature, and it is scattered between the families, bands, lineages, and various associations. At times of emergency during some threat, such as that of warring neighbors, political groups are then temporarily formed, which are later broken once the problem has been resolved. These social systems are fluid groups which mostly randomly and sometimes seasonally fuse into larger tribal units and then break down into smaller units which may be divisible in themselves. Now, the uncentralized system, it evolved into bands and tribes. So let us study first the band societies. The term band has been described by the anthropologist as a small, egalitarian, loosely tied social group which are based upon the nearness of its members. Many of the hunting-gathering societies exhibit the simple kinship organization. In such societies, formal means of exchange like a marketplace and patterns of formal leadership does not exist. Bands typically constitute of 25 to 150 individuals, and the most usual kind of band organization is developed from a core of familial males, mostly which are the male siblings, who are married to females born and brought up in other band groups. Thus, a band can be termed as exogamic in nature. They are undifferentiated in terms of kinship organization and leadership, that is, both are one and the same entity. The Aruna and Aranda of Australia, the Ona of South America, the Shoshone Indians of southern North America, the Semang of Malay, Kunk Bushmen of Africa, the Birhor and Kadar of India are some of the examples of patrilineal bands. Ellman Service added another category which is anomalous band and has a irregular composition and is framed at family level such as the Eskimos. A band has a leader or chief quite usually. In case of Northwest Coast Indian communities, their ranked leaders are termed as chiefs, though this term remains inapplicable otherwise. Capera states that the Bushman or Bergama chief doesn't hold any penal powers or functions related with judiciary, he only caters to direct and guide the subsistence activities of his fellow people and migrations. The next is a tribal level political system. A tribe is more complex in structure as compared to the band society as it accommodates much larger population. Tribes have well-informed kinship-oriented units, that is lineage, clan, moieties, kindred, etc., and sodalities, that is special-purpose non-residential groups instead of centralized and formal institutions. An illustration of sodality is the age-set system in which a group which initiated together at the time of puberty will form a continuing sodality that would carry out different functions as it passes through certain age levels. Age-set group is often termed as secret society, and Hobel described it as fraternity whose activities and memberships are wrapped in secrecy. This is infrequently observed in North America and Africa, where sex-linked roles are highly operative, that is, during the initiation ceremonies or the puberty rites, certain activities are only for the males and others are only for the females. Thus, matters are kept as secret and no one is aware what is going on the other side. The Mendi and Kemri tribes of Sierra Leone, Northwest Africa are such examples of secret societies. In the age-set group, matters of political interest are mainly in the hands of age-set members and their seniors. The second in the category of pre-industrial political system is the centralized systems. The centralized political systems involve societies in which power and authority exist in one individual or a small group. However, there lies a possibility to predict that these societies will be more densely populated than our bands and tribes and are arranged by class or rank. They will also have a specialized social and occupational roles and will make use of more productive technology, economies based on centralized redistribution, and will be more stable in regard to the ongoing socio-political groupings. According to Morton Fried, the point of distinction from the uncentralized system is mainly in the recruitment is based upon the membership in a specific class or in an elite lineage. In chiefdoms, the political power resides in a single individual who either acts alone or in association with the advisory council. Chiefdoms differ from bands and tribes in that they incorporate a number of small communities in a formal and rather permanent way. On the basis of genealogical closeness to the chiefs, commoners as well as the nobles take up ranks and level of power and authority. Chiefdoms are mostly unified politically, not having the power under single head chief, instead are composed of several political units which is headed by its own chief. Within the chiefdoms, chiefs are centralized and permanent who have a higher status, power and authority. The high rank of chiefdoms helps in minimizing internal social conflicts as the power and authority to take any decision, settle disputes and punish the wrongdoers. The chiefs are closely related with the economic activities of their subjects by means of the redistributive system of economics. The chief receives the surplus quantity of goods from the subjects, which he later redistributes by means of communal festivities. The system of redistribution by the chief head helps in ensuring that no individual in the society stays hungry. It also serves in providing, through the political domain, for the people to express their gratitude and loyalty for their chiefs. The pre-colonial Hawaiian system from the 18th century clearly illustrates the attributes of a chiefdom. The next in the centralized political systems is a state, and according to Sigmund Freud, holding a monopoly of force is pertinent to the nature of state. Other features of state level polity are that the state develops under conditions in which the significance of kinship ties is reduced and the kinship ties serves to mitigate the development of coercive power. A state society is the most formal and complex form of political organization. A state works in a hierarchical manner of political organization which administer many communities within a large geographical zone. A vast range of individual and class interests exist within a state. Pressures and conflicts drive some kind of impersonal law which is assisted by physical sanction for the proper handling of the system. The pre-colonial Zulu and the Inca Empire are few examples of such state. Let us see religion in politics. As stated by George Ballandier, the sacred is always present in politics, but it is seldom far away. While Myron Aronoff sees religion and politics have been inextricably interrelated since the dawn of human culture and civilization. The role that religion plays in politics is challenging to correlate with specific types of religion such as shamanistic or priestly. The shaman was the most powerful of men due to his high accessibility to the spirit world in case of the Eskimos, while among the tribal Hopi of American Southwest, political strength is carried through ceremonies, dances, and religious deities. Likewise, modern Saudi Arabia is regarded as an internationally powerful nation-state intimately based on Islam. The role of religion in aiding a specific political regime is exhibited basically in three ways. The first, as in the case of theocracy, the government may be directly based on religion. Religion may have its operation in order to legitimize the ruling elite. And thirdly, religion may provide the beliefs, ideals, traditions, and other underlying structures that are manipulated by aspirants to power. Thus, religion can be said to not only help in reinforcing the existing political structure, but also can be a source of force of opposition. Tradition and modernity. The old ways and forms of political anthropology are declining and transforming. The primitive form of governance and the traditional states are fast declining and transforming themselves. The political variation has started in most of the developing countries and in readjusting the alterations brought about by the colonial dominance. The most outstanding changes are not only the result of recent influences, instead have occurred by working for a considerable period of time in a number of traditional societies. They are thus modifying their nature in a more generalizing way. Hence, for this very reason, political anthropology can't neglect the dynamism and historical movements that are transforming the structure and system of institutions which they are studying and must fast develop dynamic models which are able to make political transformations and recognizing the tendencies for change within the organizations. So students, let us recapitulate what we have learned so far in this module. Political anthropology mainly concerns with how a person thinks and reasons out politically and how a person acts in a community. Weber describes that power is the strength to limit the behavioral alternatives of other people, which can be brought by means pressures, threat, manipulation, and by persuasion, or if member of one community understands and accepts others' wish as just and cordial with his own norms, ideals, and values. The exercise of power can be based upon different power bases, that is, through the presence of armed followers, the access to supernatural forces, or if one has resources at one's disposal of others required. Thank you.